Welcome to REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop! On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is, don't be afraid of that teeny tiny word, no. Surprisingly, this is the main reason so many investors take months, if not years, to get their first deal. They pay a buttload of money on their education, use the proven systems to run numbers, and never present an offer, for they think their number is too low and might be offensive to the seller. Now, many times that number will be offensive to the seller, but you can't let this stop you. You never know what's going on with them and how motivated they may be. Maybe it's a home where the couple is going through a divorce and they need to dump it fast. Maybe it's a family that is struggling with medical bills and you are saving them from foreclosure. Maybe it was a property inherited by a distant cousin 3 states away and they will take anything that's offered. Maybe they are empty nesters and can't afford costly repairs before moving into the retirement villa on hole number 7 off Donald Ross Boulevard. The point is, the answer will always be no until you ask. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us John Paul Kilduff. John Paul's journey through real estate has been guided by the personal and professional skills the military has instilled in him. During his first year of real estate, John Paul founded Anchored Homes, which he used to complete 4 flips and 4 wholesales. He has gone on to grow a team of 8 team members that work remotely across the world and has completed 100+ real estate transactions while adding 40+ rental units to his long-term holdings portfolio. My favorite part about JP is that he currently lives in Virginia, but operates all of his businesses remotely. So welcome to the show, John Paul.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yay, I'm so happy to have you on here. We have only met one time in person, and we were at a boot camp in Charlotte. And I met you. This is shocking for my listeners, but I met you at a bar. I know. We were sitting just outside, and there you were. I don't even know if you were drinking, but I was definitely having a sip of something. But it was so nice to meet you. We connected on Facebook, and we were also connected again through this group called PodMax. And so we got into the whole podcasting thing, and I'm like, I need him on my show. So thank you so much for being here. You are going to be talking about virtual assistants, which is so scary to me to pass my business off to someone. And I know you totally kick ass at it. So I can't wait to hear all about it. But before we do that, give us a quick background. I want to hear about the military, where you grew up, all that fun stuff. Quick background. Go.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And by the way, that Charlotte boot camp where you met me outside the bar, that was like one of my best boot camps I feel like I've ever attended. That's where I met Aaron Cox and Nicholas Mangrove. There's a lot of great people that I still keep in contact from that particular boot camp. So that was a really good one.
I love Aaron. He is a
hoot. You need to have him on your podcast.
I do. Aaron,
talk about badassery. So quick background on me. I was born and raised in Florida. We were raised below poverty level. I mean, we always, we were robbing Peter to pay Paul growing up.
Where in Florida? I'm from Florida.
Stop it. Melbourne, Brevard County.
I got my last speeding ticket in Melbourne.
Ooh, the cops there. West Melbourne,
Oof.
cops there are the worst.
Oh my, I have an aunt that lives in West Melbourne. This is
Oh, those
crazy.
cops are the worst.
Yes. I grew up in South Florida, but continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, we grew so through until I was about 16 years old, we lived there. And then when I turned 16, I was actually around 15, we moved to Texas because our house we got foreclosed on because my parents couldn't keep up with it. And so we moved to Texas to follow my dad, where he was doing he was a chef and he was doing on location catering for movies and commercials and stuff like that. So we went out to Texas, lived there for a couple of years outside of Dallas in a small town called Irving. And that was awesome. I absolutely loved being in Texas. The atmosphere, the people, everything was cool there. And we ended up moving back because my folks, their parents were dying. And so we had to move back to Florida, and we moved into this tiny little apartment. There was four of us and we had a couple animals. We moved into a 600 square foot apartment near my dad's mom's place. And I was about 17 at the time. I was about 17, like going on to 18. I was in my senior year. I remember moving. That was my third high school in 3 years. And when I got there, I went to Cocoa Beach High, which I'm from like the sticks, and then going into Dallas, like a urban type of community. That's kind of where I thrive. So going to Cocoa Beach High, I remember getting there and I was wearing like my baggy pants and my white shirt that was like down to my knees. I thought I was like thuggish ruggish. And I get there and I remember sitting in class and like none of the girls would talk to me. And I remember going home and I go, Mom, I was like, I think all the girls there are gay because nobody will talk to me. Like nobody even looks at me or anything like that. So I actually told her, I said, because school was so much of a social experience for me, not necessarily for the school, but I love going there for the social aspect. And I just told her, I said, I want to drop out in my senior year.
Wow.
I wanted to drop out. So I did. I dropped out with probably like 6 months left and got my GED, and then went and started working construction with my childhood friends, which were only about 30 minutes away. So I went and started working construction with them, doing roofing and doing landscaping and stuff like that. And then finally, I kind of got fed up, and my dad was like, you should look into the military, because he could see that my life was really like going nowhere at that point. So, and I thought I was a really good fit for the military because I thrive on structure. And so I joined the military in 2001. I joined the Coast Guard, and I did a 20-year career. And during that time, I did everything from working on a boat in the middle of the Mississippi River, putting buoys to mark the channel so that none of the barges would go aground, all the way to doing law enforcement down in the Caribbean, doing drug bust and migrant interdiction. And then I rounded out my career by becoming a drill instructor, going back to boot camp 15 years later, which a small little fact about that, like less than 1% of the Coast Guard's enlisted and officer force can actually do that job and have done that job. So it was like a really, really huge accomplishment, probably the pinnacle of my career.
And I want to be clear, I met you at a real estate boot camp, not at a military boot camp. Let's be super clear on that.
Yeah, that's good. Although I do run my business a little like the military. So, So yeah, I did the drill instructor, and then I became a cybersecurity guy after that. What I realized once I became a cybersecurity guy, and this was after I had started my real estate career, I realized like I really hate computers. The only thing I like about computers is the internet. I can't stand anything else. So I was like, all right, it's time to hang it up. So at 20, I punched my ticket, and that was only like, what's today? March 5th? That was less than a month ago, actually.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So you were how old and retired?
38.
Oh my goodness.
No, 39. Sorry, I'm 39. Who keeps up?
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
I want to get into this whole virtual assistant thing. And I will be honest, I just hired, well, not just, probably for about a year now, we hired our first virtual assistant, and it's someone who took over our Facebook ads. And thank goodness, because there's so much on there that I knew just a little to be dangerous, but Nope, too much for me. So I'm pretty sure I lost money for about a year until we hired our virtual assistant. So you have a company called REVA. Let's talk about that. What does REVA stand for?
Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations on actually hiring a virtual assistant.
It was tough.
Yeah, the hiring part is like just taking that step, and like most people know that they need to do it, but actually taking the step is the hardest part. And so congratulations to you.
Well, a lot of people know I'm a control freak. And so for me,
Yes.
handing off responsibilities to someone else, I was like, ah, so I finally did it. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. So to be clear, Reva is not my company.
Okay.
I have the pleasure of being able to work within the company. So Reva stands for Real Estate Virtual Assistant, REVA Global. And what's great about Reva is that they do everything and anything that you can imagine would be necessary to build and run a successful real estate investing organization. Even as real estate professionals in general, we could probably boil it down to even that, because we do a lot for agents that we don't typically do for investors. And on top of that, they actually have a medical division as well. So there's a lot of medical coding and a lot of medical tasks that virtual assistants can do. So that we have a full-blown medical division that does virtual assistants for them as well, if you have any doctors in the house.
That's awesome. So they're trained, they understand real estate then.
100%. So they actually go through, actually I can get into how badass the whole program is, the process.
I do want to hear about this, because this is what I envision. So prove me wrong. I feel like I have to teach someone everything that I do. And it first of all, the time to have to do that, to show them step by step what I do, is I hope there's an easier way to do something like that. And then just trusting that they're going to take care of my client base. So that's where it's hard for me to hand off. So prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Reva actually because back in 2016, when I started my real estate business, I was a lot like you. I am a control freak. Like as long as like it comes down to literally like how my keyboard is placed on my desk with my paper next to it. Like if somebody comes in and messes with it, I'm like, who touched my pen? Like that's how much of a control freak I am. So I get it. And so 2016, you had mentioned when we first started our first year, we did 8 deals. And like a lot of people probably that are listening in your audience, we started as solopreneurs, right? We wear every single hat in our business because that's all we can afford, right? Or at least that's all we think that we can afford at that time, is not being able to pay somebody to do it, but then also learning all of it as well, right? So I think that there's a huge, there's a big piece of that where it's like you need to become proficient just enough to be able to hand it off and hold people accountable. So that first year, I was wearing all the hats in my business. And it was right near the end of the first year, I realized, I'm like, man, if I am literally doing, well, let's just call it transaction coordinating. If I'm the one that's doing like making these documents, if I'm the one that's making all these emails and doing all these things, I can't speak to more people on the phone. And that's where my deals are made. My deals aren't made when I'm doing contract or doing documents for lenders and all that. Like my deals are made when I'm on the phone. And so I said, there's got to be a way that I can hand this off and then still be in complete control. And so that's exactly what I started doing. So I started though, because I started going to places like Upwork and Fiverr and all of that other stuff, because that's what I was being coached to do during that point, was to go and put out a job ad, write your own job description. All right, tell me this isn't overwhelming. Write your own job description, put it on a website like Upwork, filter through 20 to 30 applicants. And then, so you have like this filtering process. So you filter through the first 20 or 30, and then maybe if you're smart enough, you ask some more filtering questions and you kind of see who responds and who doesn't. And then you finally get down to like the last 10, and then you get on Zoom calls with all of them, or Skype actually, because they're in the Philippines or wherever. You get on Skype with them at that point. And then you have to ask questions and you have to understand, try to understand like all of their language and work through the dialect and stuff like that.
That's exactly what I did. I found my guy on Upwork. Yeah, it was a lot to do.
Yeah. So my very first person that I hired was for Craigslist ad posting. It took me 3 weeks to get through the entire filtering process to get down to somebody who I was like, okay, now I can teach you how to do what I do, right? So 3 weeks to get to that point, and then like another week and a half or 2 weeks to like implement and then try to hold them accountable, and like just the communication barrier, like it was a mess. And so, but I was like, hey, this is the process. And every time I do it, I get better and better. Now, instead of 3 weeks, it only takes me 2.5 to go through that filtering. Now it's 2. And so I did that for like my first 4 or 5. And I realized all I was doing is I was paying, instead of to actually do the task, I was just paying to manage somebody who was doing the task. So I'm like, why am I paying somebody and then like overseeing them, and managing them just as much as it would take me to do the task? And so that's when I reached out to my community and I said, there's got to be a better way. Like, does anybody have a better solution? And that's when I ran into REVA Global. So this is back at the end of 2016, 2017. I ran into REVA Global, and the first time I talked to him, I didn't go through with it because I was like, holy crap, I'm paying my virtual assistant like $3, albeit it was still requiring a lot of work on me. And then at that point, REVA Global was like $10 an hour. Actually, they haven't even changed. They've always been $10 an hour. Even with like all the increases in prices, like they're still $10 an hour. So I was like, $10 an hour, that's nuts. That's nuts. And so what they did for me, Jen, was awesome. They're like, okay, hold on. They did this thing that you told me you love, right? Like, let's find out how much your time is really worth.
Exactly.
Right. And so when you boil it down, and I'll see if I can do a really quick explanation. I don't know if your listeners have ever done something like this, but it's pretty simple. So everybody probably has a goal of what financial freedom looks like to them, right? Whether that's $100,000 a year, whether that's $200,000 a year, or whatever that is. Some people want to make $1 million in a year. Whatever that number is for them, let's just use that. I'm going to use $1,000 or $100,000 just to be super simple. All right. So there are 52 weeks in a year. There's 40 hours in a week. So this is what we all typically work. So that's 2,080 hours. So let's divide $100,000, which is what somebody may want to make, by the amount of hours that you would typically work in a year. And that right there is what you're worth on an hourly basis. So if you use $100,000, the trumpet's going. I told you the trumpet was going to start going. Can you hear it?
I can't hear it. And so JP had asked me right before this recording, he said, can we scoot the time back a little bit? And I really couldn't because I have another appointment after this. But he said, well, my daughter is taking trumpet lessons. I can't hear it at all. I'm a little disappointed because I was hoping to really, really hear it because I'm a former music teacher and I played the trumpet for about 30 seconds. So anyway.
It's really awesome what she's been able to do. YouTube is amazing. She hasn't seen her music teacher once in person. Everything has been self-taught over YouTube with one 30-minute lesson every Friday with her orchestra teacher. And she's playing Charlie Puth. It's been a long day without you, my friend. I bet you didn't think you were going to get me singing on this podcast, huh?
Very impressed.
Stop it.
I love it.
Now I know you're lying.
Well, thank you. And I wish I could hear, but so go back.
Back to $100,000
what you're
a year.
worth per hour.
Yes. So, if let's just take $100,000 a year, that's $48 an hour, right? So when you are working, if what you're doing is not making you more than $48 an hour, and you can hire somebody for $10 an hour to do that same thing and probably do it faster and better because they can be dedicated and they don't have a million other tasks and departments that they're trying to figure out, then at that point, that's when my mind was blown. I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking about this totally wrong, right? Like I am worth 40. For me, the number is way higher than $48 an hour.
Right.
And I'm doing minimum wage activities, $10 an hour. So if I'm doing $10 an hour tasks, I'm going to have a $10 an hour bank account at the end of the year. I'm not going to have the $48 an hour bank account. And so it was at that point when I realized, like, one, it's the same thing that you've probably heard a million times. You get what you pay for. Right. And so I was saving money on my VA, but I was really not saving any time at all. So then at that point, I was like, you know what? I'll give REVA Global a try. Jen, let me tell you, the difference in the amount of time just on the front end that I had to spend to get my virtual assistant up and running was night and day. It was 4 weeks for me personally. When I did it myself, I was up and running with the VA in less than a week.
Oh my goodness.
Not just any VA, like a VA that is, and here's the difference. Here's what I wanted to actually get to when you asked me that question. The VA that are all available through REVA Global, they're all college educated. They all have a 4-year degree. They all have to go through a 3-step hiring process, which is like they get vetted, they get interviewed, and then they go through some more, like tests that they have to prove that they can do certain things. And then at that point, once they make it through that vetting process, then they go through extensive training. I mean, 100+ hours of real estate training before they're even made available to people like me and you.
Wow.
So they go through all of this training. And then once they're done with that, they know everything from transaction coordinating to social media to actually being able to get on the phone with sellers and have organic conversations, because they know exit strategies, they know creative financing, they know like all of these things. So they can do the whole gamut of the spectrum. And then at that point, based off of what you're looking for, they say, hey, here's 3 qualified applicants that you can interview. Oh, you don't know how to interview somebody? Here's some questions that you can use to ask our virtual assistants to make sure that it's a right fit for you. And so like the whole thing, I was just like, man, this is like silver spoon. Open up your mouth, JP. Here comes the virtual assistant. Good boy, right? Like I just felt like I was being hand-fed the entire way through that process. And a week later, I had somebody up and running in my company. I was blown away at that point. And so from there, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm a little blown away, but again, back to my control freakness. It got to a point where I had no choice, because I was probably losing money by putting them into Facebook ads, where I knew I had to hire someone to take over. So I know you said the first VA that you hired did Craigslist ads.
Yeah.
So what are some other tasks, like baby steps for Jen here? Okay. So what are some things that I could start passing off to VAs?
So I would imagine you have deals going on.
Yes.
Right. And if you are still doing the tasks where it's called transaction coordinating, this is the first thing that I got off of my plate. Once I actually broke through this barrier, is the transaction coordinating. So those 30 days from under contract to close, there are so many different tasks. Actually, there's 120 of them in my company. I don't know how many are in yours. We have 120 tasks in my company, and that's everything from getting the insurance up and running through a web form, contacting the utility companies, coordinating with the agent and the title company, doing the lender documents. Like, so all of those things that happen in those 30 days in order for you to be able to actually go to the table, those were the first things that I got off of my plate.
So let me ask this: is it one person doing it per deal? Or does it like hand off to other people?
So you're saying when you hire a virtual assistant, do you have more than one? Do you have a team of virtual assistants? Is that what you're saying?
No, like you're a person who is doing all the transactional tasks. Is it the same person dealing with that one property, like from start to finish?
Yeah, it's the same person that does all the transaction coordinating across all my properties.
Perfect. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's one thing with my business. I pride people on when I'm there, I say, we're a mom and pop organization. You're going to be working with me directly or my husband directly. Now I can say, or you will be working with our one assistant. That's just one thing I love about, or that people like about our company, is that they know they're going to have the same person every time on the phone. Whereas because we're
Yes.
competing against these huge companies that, it's a different person every single time. So I digress. But
No, I think that's important because
yeah,
you're absolutely right. Because we have, we've had so many virtual assistants throughout the years, but I'll just give you an example like Kyle. Kyle was somebody who would get on the phone with a lot of our clients. And this is another great thing I loved about REVA is that their language dialect is so minimal.
well, where are they from?
Well, they're all from the Philippines,
Okay.
but part of the vetting process and the qualification process is they have to have like a very, very minimal amount of dialect. And even you can, as a client looking to pick up a virtual assistant, you can even say, I want somebody with zero dialect issues. And then you'll get that. Because like, let's just say it's somebody that is going to be on the phone. Then you can say that's what's most important to me. And then they'll put people in front of you that have no language barriers. Not that any of them do, but just someone who sounds like they're from Atlanta instead of the Philippines,
Right. Gotcha.
And so that's what we had with Kyle. Kyle was very proficient and he would get on the phone and talk to people. And they'd be like, oh, where are you from? And, he would say, well, I work with Anchored Homes. We're in South Jersey, blah, blah, blah. And nobody knew the difference. Right. And so I think to your point, it's important that you have somebody who can be a part of your organization and continue to maintain that integrity of what it is that you're putting out there to people when they come to work with you.
Yes, because we are relationship based. So
Yeah.
I do like that. And I did hear the trumpet just now. That was fabulous.
You did?
I did. I heard it. So, all right. And I know you have a lot of people on your team, and I don't want to talk forever here, but let me ask a huge question. What can you not pass off to a VA?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and this is probably different for everybody. And so I'm going to talk about specifically for me and Anchored Homes, the things where I tried to hand it off and I realized that I couldn't and I had to pull it back. And so, there was a point where a lot of what we have VAs do is lead generation, which is great because, nobody really wants to be cold calling and managing a ton of texts and doing a ton of property evaluations. Like that's all stuff that our virtual assistants can do for everybody. But once it gets to a certain point where the seller's like, maybe it's a warm lead or a hot lead, at that point, when it's time to actually close the deal and actually go get ready to go sign a contract, that's where you have to take over, right? Like those are the things that you need to keep inside your business, the things that are actually making you money, right? The things that are money generating activities are the ones that you continue to keep for yourself.
Gotcha. What I would love to pass off to a VA is lead generation. How does that work with VAs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a couple of part-time VAs that do this on a regular basis. And so we have one right now that we have what's called the Zillow offer system. And they literally spend 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and they'll go through. Can you hear the trumpet?
I heard it.
I'm so sorry.
No worry. I love it. This is life. This is life. Come on now.
Yeah, 100%. I know this is the new way of life,
exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. She's doing great. She's
some
doing
long
awesome.
tones. That's important.
Ooh, look, I'll have to tell her that. I'll be like, were those long tones you were playing, Kobe?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And just an example is like, so our Zillow offering system. So from 9 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they are literally going through Zillow, ForSaleByOwner.com, Craigslist, and all of these online platforms. And they are texting every single lead, asking him, we have a system. We say, hey, we offer, 65% of the Zestimate of the Zillow price. And they'll go and they'll just submit offers through text to all of these people. And anybody who bites, they get classified as a warm lead or a hot lead. And then we get an email. And then at that point, that's when I pick it up. So we have somebody that does that for 4 hours a day across 5 of our counties that we do business in. I can't do that. I know it needs to be done. We've generated leads and deals doing this. I don't have time to do that. So that's why I pay somebody $10 an hour to do that. So I can go close a $10,000 deal.
I love it. So, by the way, I have a Kyle. That is the name of my VA, but he lives in Charlotte. He's not in the Philippines. But when I was starting working with Kyle, again, it was all for Facebook ads because there's so many algorithms and you can there's do's and don'ts, and you can get just buried completely if you don't do things properly when you promote promote your ad and all that fun stuff. So when we started, he had never worked with a real estate investor before. So I had to really kind of teach him. And he immediately went to like the bigger ads where it's like all cash offer, all this and that, and, close in 7 days. I'm like, well, we don't, we use hard money lenders. So it's not necessarily cash immediately. We do work with private money lenders, but I'm more honest with my ads, and we'll close in 14 days. Just put 14 in there. So I had to kind of really train him in how we work. So there's got to be some type of system. How do you train them specifically for? I know they've done all this real estate training, but how do you hand off tasks to them specifically?
You're awesome, Jen. You are truly awesome. I love you.
I love you. I'm going to make you start singing to me again in a second here.
Hey, don't listen. I used to sing cadence as a drill instructor. I would have to sing cadence, and so I'm not terrible, but I will say that it has wrecked my voice being a drill instructor because I used to scream at the top of my lungs for 3 years straight. So my American Idol dreams are like flatlined, So no, that's a great question because I think that what you bring up is a very valid point, and it's probably what stops a lot of people from actually, like, they understand the value of a virtual assistant, but then like the thought of like, how do I get somebody to actually do these things? Because I barely know how to do them myself for some of them, for some people, and some people are like, I'm so controlling over the message and what people are putting out there. Yes. So the best way, and this is how we did it, and this is how I would recommend anybody does it, is like, you understand the things that you probably want to get off of your plate, and you're going to continue to keep doing them until you find somebody. So while you're doing them, just record your screen, right? So if it is literally going out and texting people on Zillow, fire up, Windows Movie Maker, or, if you're on a Mac, like QuickTime, or there's so many other different
Screencast-O-Matic, I think is screen something. O-Matic.
Yep. And then, Oh my gosh, there's so many out there, right? When I found Mac had QuickTime and it was free, I was like, yes, so I ended up recording everything through QuickTime. And then if it was texting people on Zillow and finding leads, I would just do like a quick 10-minute clip. I would save that and I would drop it in a file called tutorials. And I would do that for every single task on every single hat that I wore. And it didn't take me that much more time because I was already doing it anyways. And so, once you do that for like a week or two, you'll start to notice, you start to build this library of training that you can now say, hey, and if you want, you can organize it because we're organization freaks too, right? So like you can organize it. It's like, hey, here's all the acquisitions things that you need to know. Here's all the redevelopments things that you need to know. Here's all the accounting things that you need to know. Just go watch those videos and then let's talk about it afterwards. And the next thing you know, you got somebody who knows your system and then understands, really, because you're talking them through it. They understand like who you are and who your business is, and they can start to take that on as well. So recording your screen by far is the easiest way to hand these things off.
That makes total sense. And you're doing it anyway, you might as well record it and then share it and have it right there so they know exactly step by step how you do things. I love that. Excellent. All right.
I took it one step further as I asked the virtual assistant to create a step-by-step document based off of what they watched on the video. I'm like, hey, can you write this down in a document so that way it's something that I can print out? And they did it.
Wow. That is very, very impressive. So my favorite thing about you that I just learned is that you run your business remotely. So How do you do that? You have rentals in Florida. Is that what I read?
We do have some short-term rentals in Florida. Yep. Some Airbnbs.
Very nice. So how do you run everything remotely?
The way of the internet, the thing that I love so much about computers. It's a beautiful thing. So no, but really all jokes aside, I think once you realize that some of the best talent that you can add to your team may not be in your house, in your neighborhood, in your city, that it's elsewhere. Like I could find somebody in Iowa that does really good bookkeeping. Like they don't have to be local. And so once you do that one time, you're like, holy crap. Okay. I can literally almost outsource it. And I pretty much have. I've outsourced just about every single aspect of my business, of every business that I run across the world, through understanding what I need in the application process. So, I know you're talking about the rentals. Let's just talk about,
like, do you flip properties out of state?
Yeah. So I live in Virginia,
Okay.
and I flip properties in New Jersey.
Oh.
And so, at that point, I just, I find a real estate agent that knows the market that I'm trying to get into. And I ask them, I say, hey, do you have a contractor that that really kicks ass? Can we bring them in and make them part of our team? And so now I've got a little bit of boots on the ground in that area with a realtor and a contractor. And as long as I know my systems, I can say, hey, listen, here's how we like to operate. Let me know if this meshes with the way that you guys like to operate. And if it does, let's go forward. And so that's how we do remote flipping, is really through the agent is the most important piece. And then, finding actually, the contractor can make or break you, but the agent is the most important piece to establish first, because you need somebody who knows the market that has a good network of people like contractors that they know have kicked ass,
Well, JP, you are definitely convincing me, and I don't know if I can cut the ties to my control freakness over my business just yet, but the thought of being able to buy properties and then flip them totally out of state, sight unseen, is so scary to me, but it can be done. And I know it. And I appreciate you sharing that and teaching that to the listeners and myself especially. So awesome. You are very convincing. You have made it just seem so much easier. And how do people find REVA? How do they get a virtual assistant from there?
Yeah. So, I actually have a link if people wanted to talk more. If they wanted to go to revaglobal.com/JPK for John Paul Kilduff. So revaglobal.com/JPK. That'll give them my calendar link, and I'd be absolutely happy to talk more in detail. One of the reasons why I was brought on to REVA Global was because I am one of their clients that are implementing virtual assistants at an extremely high level. And so I really understand, because I used to be a coach for a real estate education company. I really understand how to get people to really systemize that part of getting those tasks off their plate. Like, that's really my role, is like, hey, how do we get you to the next step? And I'd love to do that for any and all of your listeners, including you, Jen.
I am on it. I'm telling you, I have to decide what I'm going to let go of first, though. So I appreciate everything that you have said. In the beginning of this podcast, I did what's called my badassery bestowment. And I asked if you would share a badassery bestowment, and you came up with a quote by one of my favorite humans, Jen Sincero, by the way. And the quote was, "If you're serious about changing your life, you'll find a way. If you're not, you'll find an excuse." So,
good.
So good. So tell us why that is your badassery bestowment to the listeners.
I think it's, I take it from my journey in real estate and the people that I've been around, the people that I've seen that have been uber successful. They don't use excuses, right? I think that a lot of the times coming up through life, we use excuses to do things that we don't want to do. But when it's something that we have to do, we find a way to do it. And I think that that's no different in everybody's journey that's probably listening here. If somebody gets a property under contract, they're going to find a way to get that money to purchase that property.
So true. And by the way, Jen Sincero, if you're listening, I love you. Come on my show. All right. So I'm reading her book on habits right now. She's just so good. All right, the second half of the podcast is where I find out what makes you a badass, and I use the acronym BADASS. So the first letter is B, and I want to know a book that has made a huge difference in your life.
Yeah, so I'm a huge reader, or I should say listener. My wife would kick my ass if she heard me say reading. Every time I say I read a book, she's like, "You don't read, you only listen." I'm like, whatever. So I listen to a lot of Audible books, and the one recently that's made a huge impact across all of my business was Profits First.
Who wrote that? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, you didn't tell me you were going to ask me that. Hold on,
Because somebody else said it too.
Here. It's an amazing, amazing book. It's completely changed the landscape of. I get actually paid now on the 10th and the 25th from all of my businesses. So I'm telling you, the whole concept it's simple, but it's so profound.
And what do you use? Audible or?
Yes,
okay.
Audible. Here, I'm going to get it for you. It's actually right here in my top. I wasn't ready for the question. I'm sorry.
And I also
Mike Michalowicz.
Mike Michalowicz. I also use an app called Libby where you can use your library card to get audiobooks for free. So, profits first. And that's basically you're paying yourself.
Yeah, well, the idea is it's a mindset shift, because I think a lot of people say they don't make, like, it's like the money you bring in has to pay all your expenses, and if there's anything left over, then you can get a little piece of that, where it completely flips that on its side and says, no, the money that comes in, allocate your profit and then pay your expenses. Oh, you don't have enough? Well, then you need to trim up your business here, and here, and find a way to run more efficiently. And so it's just a mindset shift.
Very well said. All right. The first A in badass is advice. What is the best piece of advice you ever received, and who gave it to you?
So I wish my father was still alive to hear this, but, and I used to always think it was the silliest thing whenever he said it. But I was a rambunctious kid, and I was a million miles a minute, but he always used to tell me, he's like, you need to, think before you speak. Cause I would just open up my mouth and just let stuff fly out. And he's like, you need to think before you speak. I'm like, doesn't everybody think before they speak? That's like the silliest thing anybody can even say. Right. It was something that I always battled with, but now, being an entrepreneur, it's so true. Again, so simple, but so deep, because, one of the things when I read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, he talks about it in a way, and this is when it really clicked in my head what my dad said, putting yourself in other people's shoes and thinking about how are they going to receive the message that you are putting out there. And so for that, it's like, oh, you really do need to think before you open up your mouth and speak, because you got to think about how it affects the person on the other end, because that really affects your business, the success of your business.
Absolutely. Well said. The D in badass is drive. What drives you to be successful? And I hear a trumpet player in the background, so I'm guessing that might be one thing that drives you.
Yeah, I think, family is huge,
yes.
Right? I think, I've only shared this with one other person because it's really something that kind of eats me a little bit, but I think it motivates me, which is, we do a lot of what we do as entrepreneurs for our legacy, for our family. But the crazy thing is, during that time of building up, it comes at the expense of your family, the time away from your family, right? So it's kind of ironic that you're doing it for your family, but it comes at the expense of them. And so, once I actually said that out loud, I was like, all right, now I got to find a good balance, so that way I'm not losing all these years with them. But that was definitely a tangent, because what really inspires me, family, and then just seeing people be successful, right? Motivating others. That's why I became a drill instructor, because I love to mentor and I love to coach and I love to see progress. That's why I became a coach for the real estate company. So that is really what fills my cup up and what motivates me and inspires me.
Coaching is so awesome. I love coaching.
I love it.
It just makes you a better real estate investor while you're teaching others. The best.
The aha moments are the best.
Yes. And the best form of learning is through teaching, I think.
Oh, so true.
Yes.
So true.
All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. What is a goal you are currently working on, Mr. Newly retired?
Yeah, I'm actually more busy now that I'm retired than I was before. So I have a couple of other companies. I own a skip tracing company, Best Skip Tracer. So one of our goals, we started about 8 months ago. So one of my goals is to get 100 orders per month coming in. We're about half of that. We get about 50 to 60 orders per month. So one of my goals right now, and the things that I'm working on, is how do we get that up to 100 lists per month? And then the other one, we also own a social media management company as well. So we do social media management for real estate professionals. And we set a goal by the end of this year. We want to have 120 clients. We just started last year and we have 42 clients. So we're well on our way, but we want to add 120 clients by the end of the year for our social media.
And for the listeners, explain what skip tracing is.
Oh, skip tracing. So, do you ever get those calls that say you have student loans or your
car warranty?
Your car warranty?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So now that don't get mad at me, but we are the company that provides the information for them to call you on your phone. So how does that relate to real estate entrepreneurs? You have a neighborhood of people that that are in an area that you want to buy houses. Sending direct mail is extremely expensive sometimes. And so texting them or calling them is a way more cost-effective way to approach them. So you have addresses that have names, but you don't know how to get a hold of them. If you send that to us, we'll say, hey, here's 4 landlines, 4 cell phones, and 2 emails that you can use to try to use to get a hold of them. So that's what we provide.
Wow. People have 4 landlines?
You would be surprised. Yep.
All right. The first S in badass is systems. And you, Mr. Organization, just like myself, what are systems you have in place to help you achieve success?
You asked me this and I had to think. I'm like, gosh, how do I break this down? Because I have so many. But I really think that the most important system that I use is my Google Calendar. Time blocking is such a huge piece and a big system. It's such a huge piece of my success. And I would imagine yours and a lot of other entrepreneurs, because it's not easy to implement and stay disciplined to that system. But as soon as you do, it's crazy how much time you have to do other things and how you actually fit things in through your day. So I would say the biggest one is time blocking.
I lost my calendar for about 30 minutes one time and I lost my shit. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in the next 2 minutes. So I am, yes. And every time I add an email address, because I recently started coaching for Tariq El Musa. And so I have specific, it's a really good program. I have a specific address to that, and just adding it to my calendar, I was like, I couldn't get it was just showing up that I was busy. And so figuring all that, I couldn't rest until I had my Google Calendar set up. So, and as far as system, I got to ask you that. Yep. Perfect.
I don't know. Your listeners can't see this, but I'm showing you my phone.
It's very color coordinated.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's from 5 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night.
Wow. And
discipline, baby.
And tell the listeners, do you put time in there specifically for your family?
Yeah, actually, there is. I've got, so my first one is from 6:30 to 7:30 in the morning. It says my wife's name and kids. So I like to eat breakfast with them and talk about their day. And then after 4 o'clock, I have a 2-hour session that is only family. And then once they go to bed, then I get back on and I do a little bit of things here and there. But yeah, absolutely. I always make sure that I budget time in there for family.
Very important. And the last S is success. What does success mean to you?
Being able to lift up everyone around me, right? So watching other people succeed, from me just being able to share my journey, my tips, my tricks, my motivation, my encouragement, and seeing them be successful. That's what it means to me.
I love it. I appreciate you so much coming on here and sharing your knowledge with us. Where can people find you online? I know you mentioned the link to do a setup call, but how can people find you on social media? All that fun stuff.
So the REVA Global one is to virtual assistant specific, but because I have all these other companies, I had to create one website where people could go to find and get to all of the other companies. And that website is Inspiredable. So that's a mashup between being inspired and being able to do something. So inspiredable.com.
I love it. I had to do the same thing recently. I created a website and I tried to get jenjosie.com, but it was a sex addict website.
No. I mean, it's a cool name. See, I don't have a cool name like that to create a website. Like it's John Paul Kilduff2nd.com just doesn't have the same ring as Jen Josie.
Yes. So I'm the real JenJosie.com. That was much more fun. But that's a very good point because I didn't know how to coordinate everything. And, one of our coaches taught me to do that. So thank you, John Paul. JP, as I first met you, was JP, never John. You are awesome. I appreciate your time. And that is all. Thank you for listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of REIN by registering on REINmastermind.com.